channel. Robert Kesakos is your usual suspect. Welcome back to yet another live broadcast on your favorite football updates channel. It's a pleasure to be back with you on this beautiful Thursday night/evening, 11 minutes past the hour of 11 p.m. that we do come to you live from Kampala, Uganda. Thank you for keeping it locked on the Football Tribe UG channel. It's always a pleasure to have you guys around, and therefore I extend my sincere vote of thanks to all of you that were part of the morning broadcasts. It started a bit late at around 10, but you guys managed to keep us company, and I'm really, really grateful or indebted for that. For those that did not manage to catch it, you can always go and watch it after the broadcast is already done, because the information is still just as good, just as fresh. And then for those of you that have spared the moment to go over and watch our video for the preview of the UEFA Champions League between PSG and Arsenal, thank you so much. I can see majority of you have not yet checked it out. So I do encourage you or implore you to go and check it out and let us know what your views and thoughts on that. But more importantly, tonight we'll proceed with the conversation. We'll talk about Barcelona's exploits in as far as the transfer window is concerned. We'll talk about some insights regarding the UEFA Champions League final. And then, of course, I will also continue with the transfer rumors, speculation, and gossip, as well as the managerial changes that are happening in Italy. There appears to be a swap of managers here and there, so things are happening really thick and fast. Decisions are being made left, right, and center at a time when some clubs are trying or attempting to do things as fast as possible before the World Cup kicks off, because we know that now that the season has climaxed, at least, of course, the ultimate climax are scheduled for Saturday for the UEFA Champions League final. But as we wait to get to there, all the other leagues have, all the other major leagues have come to an end. And therefore, that means that players are going to be going to their respective national teams for where they've been summoned for the World Cup. But before we get to that, those that are being pursued by other teams will be, making the moves. We know for a fact that Anthony Gordon has traveled to Spain to undergo his medicals for his proposed move from Newcastle to Barcelona, something that has caused a bit of a stir within the football faithfuls in the UK. When you look at the price tag in comparison to what it would have been if it were a Premier League trying to assign the same player whose contract still has 4 years to run with the club. So I think it's only ideal that we have that conversation. But it looks like Barcelona are not sitting back after many years of not signing a lot of top talent in terms of expensive recruitments, etc. It looks like they have been saving their pound of gold for something even bigger, because I think they they sort of do realize that there is an opportunity maybe to dominate beyond just domestically, but also extend their exploits to the continental scene at the UEFA Champions League, where for the last 2 consecutive seasons have bowed the semi-finals and the quarterfinals respectively at the hands of Inter Milan and Atletico de Madrid. I think they look at PSG and think, well, we can build something like that. I mean, in any case, they already have something like that. You have a good facet of young players: Pau Kubasi, Marc Casado, Pedri, Gavi. They're all this Lamine Yamal, Joan Garcia. When you look at the spine of that team, there's a good lot of young players that are going to give you a very, very good lengthy career. So I think they're looking at that and thinking to themselves, maybe we can build our own dominancy here. You look at Real Madrid, who seem to have fallen off the wagon, at least for the last 2 consecutive seasons, if it is anything to go by. And then you look over in Germany, and whereas Bayern Munich are as strong as they can ever be, you feel that they're not indomitable. Then they look at the Premier League, where Arsenal built themselves quite the squad with players, 25, 26, 24, that sort of age bracket. That means they still have a good 3-4 years together if nothing changes. And then you look at Liverpool's struggles, you look at Manchester City's managerial change, and then you think to yourself, maybe there's a world of room where we can also go and have our own dominancy or try and, challenge the very best. Like I said, over the last couple of seasons, they've had to rely majority or a lot of times on the academy to have the right players in place to help the club to, continue to compete. Of course, they've been undergoing a stadium refurbishment or rebuild at Camp Nou to increase its capacity and its beautification and things like that. All those things, of course, cost money. But what happens on the pitch in terms of results and success is what feeds into everything else that the club, achieves, whether financially or in terms of raising their brand value and etc. etc. So Barcelona are possibly looking at that. So yesterday we did speak about this, about the agreement that they had reached with Newcastle over the transfer of Anthony Gordon in a deal worth over 80 million euros. And I said this, had it been for a Premier League club that had come in for Anthony Gordon, trust me, there's going to be an English tax, there's going to be a Premier League tax that would have come calling for any of those teams. Now, obviously, there's a little bit of a rationale to it. First of all, if you're Newcastle and you're selling to Barcelona or you're selling to Bayern Munich or Real Madrid or whichever team it could be, you could think to yourself that maybe I'm not selling to a direct rival. We're not in the same league. Hi, Neon. Good to have you back. You said you asked, do you remember me? How could I forget, Neon? But I hope you're doing okay. And thank you so much for rejoining us this evening. So if you're Newcastle, you're thinking, well, Barcelona are a rival and we just met them twice this season in the UEFA Champions League, both at the league phase and at the knockout stages. And Robertson is coming to Spurs? Yes, that's true. So you're thinking to yourself, yes, they are rivals in that sense, but look, next season we're not even playing in the UEFA Champions League, and we do not know for absolute facts or with absolute certainty that the season subsequent to the next will also be playing in the UEFA Champions League. So our possibility of interacting on the pitch is a bit distant than it would be if we were selling to a Liverpool, if we were selling to an Arsenal, a Man United, a Manchester City, a Liverpool, and that sort of thing. So, but predominantly, like I said, over the last couple of summers, particularly, going back to last summer and the one before last, there's been a fine appreciation of Anthony Gordon, around the football circles. I think you go back to the 2023, 2024, when he had an amazing, season, scoring, I think, 11 goals and providing about 10 assists thereabout, giving him a 21 goal involvement. So he had this stellar performance. So that's when teams like Arsenal and Liverpool started circling around, inquiring. And then he went on to, I think, renew his contract after that, or a year later. And then, of course, it was always going to be an expensive deal. Present day, he's 25 years of age, right well within the sort of age when players start to hit their prime. And then he still has 4 years left to his current contract. That means when you're negotiating the deal, it's not that the player can just say, let me see out my contract and join you. By the time he sees out a 4-year contract, would have turned 29. So that comes Newcastle's negotiating power. And then, so there's a number of factors to really look at. So when you look at the estimated value of Anthony Gordon, ideally, that is the right value for the player, in an ideal sense of things. But why I'm saying he's gone on a cheap is in comparison to what he would have cost had it been a Premier League team, trying to pursue his signature. Obviously, so you would get the English player tax, you'd get the Premier League tax, and the competition's tax. Why? The English tax is an England international, so homegrown, etc., etc. Okay, maybe at home, anyways. And then the age profile and the contract that is left to it, then you get beat on that one. Then you have, because you're a Premier League team, a competitor tax. So being a Premier League player is that he's a Premier League proven player. That's the tax I'm talking about. Premier League proven. So if you're keeping him within the Premier League, they're going to make the argument that you're already taking a finished product. We're talking about a player well within his prime. So, it's not like you're going to have to coach him for long to get him to where you want to get him. So there's that. Then the competitor tax is, we are playing in the same league at least twice. What is guaranteed is twice every season we're going to play against each other. So if twice every season we're going to play against each other, then you go to pay more. So eventually, a player that is going for 70 million euros as guaranteed fees. Let me look for my conversion calculator here and see what that stands for in pounds. 70. Okay, let's say 80 million euros. Euros to pounds. How that looks like in a way. Basically, that lands you at about 69 million pounds, or close on to 70. But that's the total package because the guaranteed fees is 70 million, is reported to be 70 million euros, which is essentially about 60 million pounds. And then with expected add-ons of 10 plus million euros. So at 60 million pounds is such a coup. Let's not forget, not too far back ago, about, is it 4 years now? When Arsenal went to Brighton and bought Ben White for 50 million pounds. You look at players like Anthony Langa, who cost about 54 million pounds last summer. Noni Madueke, 48 plus 4 in expected add-ons, rising to 52 million pounds. You look at all that ballpark and you think to yourself, Barcelona have gotten a good deal here. They've negotiated really, really well. But like I said, those are the pertaining factors. And if Newcastle are indeed happy to sell, I think they're happy to sell to a non-Premier League side. That's for starters. And that's why maybe they were willing to back down on whatever the ideal valuation would have been. But the one thing that I can say without any fear of contradiction whatsoever is that his value or his price tag for a Premier League team would have been no less than 75 million pounds, at least in guaranteed fees. So that's in excess of 15 million pounds more than a team like Barcelona and Bayern Munich are spending on him. Now, we spoke about Bayern Munich's interest in the player, and according to multiple reports, Bayern Munich were not willing to meet the preferred valuation of the player in Newcastle's eyes, and that's when Barcelona swooped in quite swiftly and have landed his services. Of course, the deal is yet to be finalized, but it is in the works of the pipelines. So expect that to happen or to be completed as quickly as possible, provided nothing changes. So the player has traveled to Spain to undergo his medical and things like that, per se. So we'll just have to wait and see. Now, Barcelona have not stopped there. They're not stopping at just signing. Excuse me. They're not just stopping at signing Anthony Gordon. Remember, Robert Lewandowski has part ways with the club at the end of this season. Obviously, his contract, I presume, runs out at the officially or formally at the end of next month, when he will receive his final paycheck from Barcelona before they struck him off of their before they struck him of their payment sheet or schedule. So they are looking for a replacement of a striker. It is a conversation that I've had here with multiple Barcelona fans. I thought you support Arsenal. Up the Villa, yes. 2026. I do support Arsenal, despite the fact that I'm donning a PSG jersey. I know, but that's true. What you thought is true. Okay, so it's a conversation that I've been having with Ash, with Pedri, and there's another Barcelona fan whose name have forgotten off of my fingertips, about the ideal striker for Barcelona. And I remember in terms of particular order. I said the better off pursuing Julian Alvarez, even though at the time I thought it was a deal too expensive for them to pull off. But looks like they're going to go and test the waters and test the resolve of Atletico de Madrid of keeping the Argentine. So then I said Joao Pedro will be under consideration. Then we talked about Victor Osimhen, and then we talked about what's the other striker? We mentioned about Erling Haaland, and then of how too big, too expensive we would be, and I'm also of the view of thinking that Manchester City are not bound to lose Brad Erling Haaland this summer. So, anyways, if he's to leave the club, maybe it will be after next season or somewhere in the not so distant future. So, but the point I'm trying to make is that Julian Alvarez was the top of the list, and looks like the way we see things is the same way Barcelona and its minders or technical persons also see things. They are now pursuing a deal to sign Julian Alvarez from Barcelona. So, and according to Fabrizio Romano, they're already preparing their first bid for his signature. To their first bid to Atletico de Madrid to try and get the Argentine. Hi, Cedric. Good to have you back. Good evening to you too as well. So Cedric does join us from France, one of those semi-regular suspects on the channel. He's been here, he's been around the block for quite some time. So always a pleasure to see him around whenever he has the chance to reunite with us. So when you look at Julian Alvarez, the profile is simply right. 26 years of age. He's that sort of dynamic forward, not a typical 9 in a sense, more of a 10 or false 9 kind of player. He's been banging in the goals, 10 goals in the UEFA Champions League this season with 5 assists. That's a 15-goal involvement in the Spanish La Liga. He's not really hacked it well thus far. He scored only 8 and provided 12 assists. But then you look at that, and that's what? 18 plus 9 is what? People with the quick math there, 18 plus 9 is 27. That's a 27-goal involvement in the UEFA Champions League and the league alone, which is good. So, but last season he scored 17 goals and provided 4 assists, which was his debut campaign. Very good on taking on players. He has the speed. He can play off the left wing. He can play centrally. He's very good with dead ball situations. We've seen him bang in a couple of free kicks and things like that. So he's a really good guy, He's such a good player. And 26, that's when you're hitting your prime. So he's a quick acclimatization to football in Spain gives Barcelona the nod of confidence to say, we're going to go after him, So initially, like I said, I thought the deal would be too expensive to pull off, but looks like Barcelona are saying, no, look here, mate, we have the resources. And you see, the beauty sometimes about transfers is that if you negotiate a good deal, you can spread your acquisition of an asset, the like of Julian Alvarez, over a given number of years. For example, it could be a deal that costs them 120 million euros that is payable in 5 years. So on average, they'll be paying what? 100 and maybe 20, they'll be paying about 24 million euros per year, which is okay. So anyway, so they really are pushing for that, and it has been widely reported that their opening deal will come in at 100 million euros, even though they know for an absolute fact that it will cost more for Atletico de Madrid if they are to sell to their direct competitor. Now, the beauty about this thing or this deal, if you're a Barcelona fan out there and looking at it from the outside, is that Atletico de Madrid and Barcelona fairly have a good working relationship when it comes to player exchanges. We know for a fact that Antoine Griezmann has left Atletico de Madrid before and joined Barcelona. We know for a fact that Ada Turan has left Atletico de Madrid and joined Barcelona before. We know for a fact that Joao Felix has had a long stint at Barcelona coming out of Atletico de Madrid. So that sort of relationship, at the business level, beyond the rivalries of what happens on the pitch, is what sort of gives me the confidence in thinking that Barcelona are capable of pulling this one off. So it may take a bit of time. It may not come easy. It may take a lot of hard crack negotiating, but I think it is the deal that they can pull off. like I said, it is always bound to land you anywhere around 100 to 120 million euros, which I'm thinking to myself, let me do the quick conversion quickly, because sometimes I don't know. I don't know why I love to understand what the figures would be when it comes to pounds. But remember, Atletico de Madrid spent about 85 million pounds on him in terms of total package coming in from Manchester City. That's what was the reported overall financial outlay. So for him to be sold to Barcelona for close on to, let's say, 103 million pounds or 104 million pounds, yeah, it would give Atletico Madrid a bit of a profit. Then the question then becomes, who do Atletico de Madrid go for as a possible replacement? I've had speculative rumors that Victor Gyökeres could be under consideration, and I do not know with absolute certainty whether Arsenal will be willing to part ways with Victor Gyökeres after a debut campaign in which he scored for them 21 goals. I do not know, but when it comes to selling players, I know anything can happen. If a deal can be hammered out, it can, especially if the player is willing to join Atletico de Madrid. Two, if Arsenal are willing to sell, the question then becomes at what price? We're talking about a player that they only acquired last summer for a total package in the excess of 65 million euros. So if they were to get maybe 80 plus million euros, who knows? Who knows? Anything can happen. So, but remember, because Arsenal are in a very good place financially, they're not going to be compelled to sell. But also, they'll also have to ponder about themselves that if we part ways with Victor Gyökeres, who's going to be his replacement, and at what cost will they come? We've spent the entire season and speaking about Arsenal and the appreciation of Julian Alvarez. So if he ends up going to Barcelona, that leaves you a bit short. Who do you turn to? Do you turn to Lautaro Martinez from Inter Milan? Do you go for Dusan Vlahovic, who has had a bad campaign with Juventus? Do you turn to Jonathan David, who's had a bad debut campaign with them? Where do you look? So that's a sort of a big question. When you look around the Premier League, there's not that many strikers that you can turn to. Igor Thiago, yeah, he's had a brilliant season. I'm still waiting to be proven wrong over his overall consistency, whether he can have a repeat of the same form that is displayed this season, next season. So you look at the top three top scorers, and it's Brad Erling Haaland. You're not going to get him out of Man City. Igor Thiago, and I'm not yet convinced, like I said. Next to them was Anton Semenyo with 17 goals. It's just joined Manchester City, and he's not a striker. You look at Omar Mamush. Are you going to go for him? Not really. I do not think so. Dominic Calvert-Lewin, Danny Welbeck have been the other, high goal scorers in the league. So you can see that when it comes to the strikers market, domestically, in as far as the Premier League is concerned, there's not that many elite strikers. Maybe Arsenal have been linked with the potential move for Joao Pedro, unless Arsenal are convinced beyond a reasonable doubt that they are capable of poaching Chelsea and getting Joao Pedro. Maybe that's a world where you could think of it that it is a possibility that Victor Gyökeres could end up in the opposite direction to replace Julian Alvarez at Atletico de Madrid. But remember, Chelsea spent 60 million pounds on Joao Pedro. What that essentially means that after a very good debut campaign in which he scored 15 Premier League goals to the best of my recollection, and I stand to be corrected if that number is higher than that. But he scored 15 Premier League goals. Oli Watkins is the other guy in between there with 16. But remember, Oli Watkins is already 30 plus. So Joao Pedro, who is 24 coming on to 25 thereabout, a player that they spent 60 million pounds on the previous summer is not going to cost you any less than 70 million pounds. Aromal says tomorrow. What's happening tomorrow? Tomorrow is Friday. Indulge me, Aromal. What's happening tomorrow? So, if you're Arsenal, you're thinking to yourself, can you milk 75 million pounds out of Victor Gyökeres and then get that exact money and transpose it to acquiring Joao Pedro? Because it would then be a good deal in the sense of the difference in age profiles and the difference in style of play of both players, So, and you feel in an ideal scenario, Joao Pedro would be more suited to Arsenal style of play than Gyökeres kind of tailored. He is tailored to it. So, but anyways, that is all speculative nature of to see where it lands. because a lot of clubs are going to are circling around FC Bournemouth on junior Elio Kropi. Why? Because he's a young player, only 19 years of age. And a lot of clubs are going to look at him as a very good understudy of a striker. Because even at FC Bournemouth, he's sort of been behind the pecking order of Evan Nilsson, even though Evan Nilsson is not that, he's not been banging in the goals as quickly. Then you have a striker at Benfica who apparently for the last 3 seasons has been scoring back that goals across all competitions in Pavlidis. Now, Premier League clubs have burnt their fingers before. For example, use the example of Darwin Núñez at Liverpool, having come from Benfica, and it did not really work out the way they had hoped. And they could have reservations, but Pavlidis, I do not think the top clubs will be going for him. I'm thinking maybe the mid-table clubs will be considering his signature. So it's something we'll have to wait on and see how the entire situation goes down when it comes to the strikers market and etc. So anyways, we'll leave that at that. Okay, let me get to Neon. I do not know if Neon, you're still with us. You spoke of Andy Robertson. Well, Andy Robertson is on the verge of completing that move to Tottenham Hotspurs. But PSG are the Champions League winners. And then you put, it's just a matter of time. Well, indeed, it is just a matter of time. We're only waiting to see how things, end up or land by the blow of the final whistle. I think by 9 p.m. Saturday, we'll have known who the champions are. Ash says, we are so back, baby. Ash is a Barcelona fan, and he's speaking to the idea of them landing the services of Anthony Gordon and the pursuance of Julian Alvarez, who we've been just previously been discussing. But hi, Ash. Good to have you back. I hope you're doing okay. So, Tottenham Hotspurs are landing Andy Robertson and Marco Senesi. Remember, Marco Senesi is not renewing, has decided not to renew his terms with FC Bournemouth. So they are close on signing him as a free agent. I mean, what a scoop he would be. Bournemouth signed him for about £12 million about 4 years ago. So to get those two players with all their Premier League experience in Andy Robertson and Marco Senesi, that's a brilliant deal for Tottenham Hotspurs. Remember, Tottenham Hotspurs have something hanging over their heads because they do not know where the allegiances of Mickey van der Ven in terms of his future lay. We know for an absolute fact that there's a couple of clubs circling around, including Liverpool, who are interested in his services. So we'll have to wait and see. Anyways, Armal says Kiki all day. Greater than Prime Yamal. Are you talking about Kiki Palmer? Joking, anyways. So Tottenham Hotspurs are looking to equally get their business done as quickly as possible. Of course, if Senesi is to arrive, you anticipate either Christian Romero or Mickey van der Ven, at least one of the two will be leaving to create space within that squad to accommodate his services. Then, so all that is happening. Then Andoni Iraola, yes, we spoke about him. Actually, we've been speaking about this one for multiple weeks. He's a highly sought after guy, and as we speak today, he's in direct contact with Bayer Leverkusen on negotiations of him taking over from Kasper Hillman. Now, he had negotiations with AC Milan, but apparently the two could not come to terms on personal conditions revolving around the deal of him becoming the head coach at AC Milan. Remember, AC Milan sacked Massimiliano Allegri and literally the entire top brass in terms of the club leadership because they missed out on Champions League football and they decided that was an abomination. Just watch how Flick transforms Anthony Gordon to a monster. Indeed, we're going to be watching the space to see what Bessie can bring out of him, given that we have a prime example of what he's done with Rafinha. So For Andoni Iraola, he has a lot of proposals at his table, including, but not limited to, the idea that Crystal Palace would want to land his services. Now, unfortunately, in my humble opinion, moving from FC Bournemouth to Crystal Palace is no upgrade. It is still at the same level, but maybe the paycheck becomes bigger, and maybe he helps Crystal Palace build onto the legacy that Oliver Glasson has left around, winning 3 major trophies in the last 12 months. So you never know. But Bayer Leverkusen are the lead contenders, although he's not the only candidate. He's one of the 2 candidates that they are considering. The other is Oliver Glasner. Remember, Oliver Glasner has experience managing in Germany, having been at the helm of Eintracht Frankfurt, who he guided to the triumph of the UEFA Europa League. And then the other was Luis Felipe. But Luis Felipe is currently off the table because he's already reached an agreement with AC Monaco to join them. So that's the situation regarding Andoni Iraola. In terms of where his future lies. There's been multiple reports in regards to how he would prefer in the UK. He would prefer to stay in the UK, but apparently he's also eyeing the Liverpool job. Why? Because at Liverpool, you have 2 factions. You have a faction that is saying, give Arne Slot 1 more year to fix whatever has gone wrong for him last season. And then you have a faction that say, the sooner we pull the plug on him, the better we'll all be. So that is what is happening with Andoni Iraola. So apparently he has a preference of the Liverpool job should it be available. So we'll have to wait and see. Okay. Ash, about the transformation of Anthony Gordon, that's for me, it's the only thing I'm banking on, by the way. It's the only thing I'm banking on because I, for one, do not rate Anthony Gordon as one of the elite wingers, left wingers. But I do appreciate that he has the potential, So maybe it is Hans Flick that manages to get the best out of him. Okay. You say I read an unofficial report that Barcelona have about 350 million to spend. Still do not know, but I expect us to get 3 or 4 players. Now, 350 million euros is a very plausible transfer budget. And the reason for that is that you do not necessarily have to have it in cash. Like I said, when clubs are acquiring these players, remember the transfer fees are spread over a given period of time. I do not know if Barcelona have cleared all their debts, but the last time I checked, okay, I do not know with absolute certainty, but there had been reports that Barcelona, at some point before the kickoff of last season, still owed Liverpool money, some bit of money from their deal with on Felipe Coutinho. Speculation of some monies owed to Borussia Dortmund for their deal that they did many years ago on Ousmane Dembele. But even if that were not to be true, Leeds, where they got Rafinha from, I think in 2023 thereabout. So you have all that. So the advantage about transfer business is that the club will say we're going to spend 350 million euros in this transfer window. Yet in actual sense, what they have as cash at hand is 150 million euros. And they will say, let's say we're going for Julian Alvarez, we'll pay 50 million euros upfront to get the deal done. And then for Anthony Gordon, we'll pay 30 million euros upfront to land his services. We want Lisandro Bastoni from Inter Milan, and let's say it's going to cost us about 50-60 million euros. We'll pay 20 million euros upfront. So then it means we still have a balance of what? We still have a balance of about 50 million euros. So, and to spend on other players in regards to, acquiring them. So that's how ordinary business gets negotiated when it comes to that. So I can understand if that report is indeed worthy of the salt to suggest that they have 350 million euros to spend. And like I said, when you go back to the last couple of transfer windows, Barcelona have not been spending big money on players, So, Sarayan, I've seen you, but I will get your comment in a bit. So, guys, kindly indulge me as I go through it bit by bit. Bro, is Gordon's price overrated, in my opinion? What do you think? I do not think his price tag is overrated. For 60 million pounds, Barcelona getting a very, very good deal. Remember, you're talking about a player who still had 4 years on his current contract. Two, you're talking about a player that is hitting his prime, 25 years of age. So, and with a huge potential. In the Champions League, he scored 10 goals this season. In the Premier League, he's only scored 6 and provided 2 assists. But this is a player that has shown potential. Like I've told you, his best Premier League campaign came in 2023-2024 when he scored about 11 goals and provided 10 assists. If I've not interchanged the two figures, but he had a 21 goal involvement. So the potential is there. For 60 million pounds, I've told you, if it was Arsenal or Liverpool or Manchester United or Chelsea signing him, he would have cost them no less than 75 million pounds as guaranteed fees. So you'd have had that Premier League tax and, competitors tax on his head and, the English tax on him. So Barcelona are getting themselves a really, really good deal for Anthony Gordon. Okay. Although you've then retracted your comment. I don't know why. Maybe Rashford at right wing to substitute Yamal. I also had Bernardo Silva is interested, but not sure about it, just waiting for Alvarez. Now, Barcelona, Bernardo Silva has multiple proposals from a lot of gigantic teams in Europe. Atletico de Madrid is one of them. He's held apparently talks with Barcelona. Juventus are also interested, among a host of other clubs that are really, really interested in signing this 30-year-old Portuguese international. So whichever way it lands, he's a free agent. The decision is up to him. Whoever promises him the better project is where he will go. And, Barcelona, I think, would have a sway over any other club in terms of preference. I do not know if would be his personal preference, but in terms of ranking the clubs that are interested in his services, Barcelona are obviously the biggest, baddest boy in the room. Okay, actually, it's cheaper than Rashford. Rashford's salary is very, very high. Yeah, Rashford's salary is around 350 grand a week. So because Barcelona, in not paying any loan fees, committed themselves to paying his wages, as that's the deal that they discussed with Manchester United, and with an option to buy for about 30 million euros. Now, for Barcelona to strike a deal with Marcus Rashford, it would necessitate the 27-year-old England international to take a pay cut on his wages, to go from maybe 350 grand a week to somewhere around 200 to 250 grand a week. If he's willing to take the pay cut, maybe Barcelona reassess their options and see how to retain him. So, but again, I find it a bit difficult understanding how Barcelona commit themselves to making the financial outlay on Anthony Gordon and still retain Marcus Rashford. And the reason for that is because they both play off of the left wing, even though they can both play centrally. So there's a world of possibilities where they keep both. But as soon as Barcelona made the move for Anthony Gordon, I thought Marcus Rashford's chances of staying at Barcelona went from 80% to as low as 30 to 40%, anywhere between 30 and 40%. That's as low how those chances have dropped that were at 80%. Why? Because look at it in this sense. You're Barcelona, you have Rafinha, you have Lamine Yamal, you still have Ferran Torres, you have your Dani Olmo, you have Fermin Lopez, you have you then add Anthony Gordon, and you add Julian Alvarez. Now, ideally, Julian Alvarez would be a direct replacement for Robert Lewandowski. So in Anthony Gordon, you're getting a player that can play off of the left wing, but can also play centrally, where you also have Ferran Torres almost doing the same thing. So unless one of those players is also going to be moved on, we'll have to wait and see how the dice is rolled in that regard of sense. But yeah, the chances of Marcus Rashford staying at Barcelona have sort of seemed a bit down. So, and then the other day we were having a discussion about Marcus Rashford, and a couple of Manchester United fans, at least those that I've interacted with, United Road 10, Summer Banks, greetings you Summer Banks wherever you are tonight, and United Road as well. They are of the view that they do not want Marcus Rashford within a 10-feet distance at Old Trafford. So, but if Barcelona do not sign him, he will end up back there. So we'll have to wait and see. Okay, Sir Ryan says, yeah, Gordon earns about 80 grand a week. Rush is 325,000. Now, apparently, from the reports that I've had, is that Anthony Gordon would be commanding a salary no less than 120, but what has been highly reported, and this is with not with absolute certainty, is that it would come in the ballpark of 150 to 200 grand a week, which is still way less than what Marcus Rashford will be commanding. And then when you look at the age profile and how you can spread all this across years, you can see why Barcelona will be making that sort of deal ahead of that of Marcus Rashford. Okay, these players get paid too much money. Okay, I mean, it is what it is. The sport in itself has a lot of investment. There's a lot of money, but also remember their careers are short. Because a player at most will have a 20-year career. Now, averagely, that career, let's say at the top level, could be anywhere between anywhere between 8 to maybe 10, 12 years. For example, let's say by the age of 22, you hit your prime. That means from 22 to age of 30, you're banging it. So that's 8 solid years. And therefore, you're commanding top dollar. By extension, you can take it to the age of 32. So that is 10 years. So 8, 10 years. Of course, there are outliers of the Cristiano Ronaldos, of the Lionel Messi, whose careers have spanned on for longer, the James Milners, etc., the Robert Lewandowskis of this world. But of course, the more you grow, or the more you age, your value also drops. So roughly you have a 15-year career, and then after that you're not going to be earning as much. So, and yet in other careers, sometimes you're going to work for anywhere between 30 to 50 years. So that's why they get paid as much as they get paid. But also, it's because there's money in sport, in athleticism. Go to basketball players, go to NFL players, go to hockey players, go to what other sport? Rugby. Players are commanding good money. So it's not just about football, really. Okay, yeah, but his first, Ash says, yeah, but he fists pressing system. If Flick wants him, I trust the coach. Okay. You say, hi, Pedri. How are you doing, my brother? Good to have you back on the broadcast. You say, indeed, they make a lot of money. That's true. Bro, imagine UEFA Champions League final, score is 0-0 and Arsenal gets a corner in extra time. Anything can happen. Anything can happen in a final. You see, two things can happen in a final. Either one team gets beaten so badly, or it's one simple slight moment that it decides the tie. Any of those things can happen, And you see, there's a saying in our local language that there is always not a very big fight where a hero dies. In other words, I'll give you an example. It may not be an elephant that kills a lion. It could be something small that kills a lion. And the lion is known as the king of the jungle. It could be something small that kills an elephant and not a fight between two elephant bulls, So when it comes to the final, anything can happen. It could be a small moment. It could be a stupid decision by a player that they consider penalty, and it's that penalty that decides the entire game. It could be a blind pass by a defender that is intercepted and the other team scores, and the rest of the game is, 50-50 or a bit dull, with very few chances. Go back to yesterday's final as Crystal Palace beat up against Rayo Vallecano. Chances fell far between. Crystal Palace had 3 shots on target. Rayo Vallecano had only 1. That simple moment by Gianfilippo Mateta, not even an extraordinary goal in the sense of the beauty of it, but it is the goal that decided the game. So it's as simple as that, So you had a couple of those. Anyways, okay. Ash says the thing is we make around 1 billion annually just next to Real Madrid. We got the money, but it's always La Liga's FFP rules. But since Lewy left, we got a big salary gap. Okay, yeah, that is also a factor. But like I said, when you go back over the last couple of seasons, Barcelona have not been signing many big players. You know, they've not been. You've not had those exponential figures in terms of financial outlay on transfers. So really, they have built themselves some muscle in terms of what their budget is to spend on transfers. Okay, Sarayan says, I feel like the game might go into extra time on Saturday. Anything is possible. Anything is possible. But I, for one, personally, I detest penalties. I wouldn't want it to go to penalties, regardless. I think PSG might win it. It's a huge possibility. Like I said, they are the outright favorites. They are the team to beat. That's why a lot of the analysis that you're hearing around the game is how do Arsenal overcome PSG, as opposed to it being vice versa, because we have an acknowledgement, a fine appreciation that PSG is the biggest ball in the room, in the yard, and they are the ones, they're the team to beat. They're the reigning champions. They're the ones with the pedigree. They're the ones with the better head coach or manager. You know, they have a better attacking force, midfield. So you look at the number of factors that are in, and clearly there's a lot going for them than it is going against them. But so I do acknowledge that. I just hope we can get an entertaining match as the neutrals. Okay, I do not think it will be a dull game. As dull as the 2003 UEFA Champions League final between AC Milan and Juventus that ended in penalties. Okay, yeah, 100%. Ash says, I thought that too. As soon as I heard about Gordon, I thought Rashi is gone, but now I hear some faint noises. I will leave it to Flick. He knows what he's doing. I'll just call it. Okay. I will have to wait and see. Hi, Mariam. Mariam says we won today in the friendly match between Egypt and Russia by 0-0. Congratulations, Egypt. I hope you carry on the same form going into the World Cup. Hi, Pedri. You say it's Hakimi and not Hakimi. Okay. Thanks for the point of correction on the name there. That's Pedri. Pedri is one of our usual suspects, although in recent times he's turned into a semi-regular suspect because of school and perhaps other life commitments. But it's always a pleasure to have him around. He's a Barcelona fan just as much as Ash is. Okay. Sarayan says, worst final I watched was Chelsea City, pure garbage for 90 minutes. And yet it was that moment by Kai Havertz that decided the tie. So you could have that sort of dull game that does not offer you that much. And then it is one slight moment that decides to break the tie or to break the deadlock. So anything can happen in as far as Saturday is concerned, in as far as things go. But the one thing that I know with absolute certainty is that by the time the clocks hit 9:30 p.m. or perhaps even 9 p.m., we'll have already known who the champions of Europe will be. Aromar says, bro, really, Rodri is needed for Real Madrid. Real Madrid, yeah, they need a player of Rodri's quality. And that's one of the things I've been saying, that with the departure of Pep Guardiola, it remains to be seen of how Manchester City will be able to keep a hold of some of their elite players, especially those that are highly sought after by some of Europe's elite sides. And Rodrigo Hernandez Cascante is one of those players that has been constantly been linked with a potential move to Real Madrid. Obviously, the other is Vitinha, but it will all... Now, the situation is that I think, to the best of my knowledge, Rodri has 1 year left to his current contract. Manchester City had enlarged him into contract renewal negotiations, but I've not received an update in that effect on how far those ones have gone. So Vitinha would be a good fit, but also a very expensive deal. So it will also boil down to what Florentino Perez's transfer budget will look like. But yeah, Real Madrid needs somebody to sit in that deep lying role, because all the players that have been in manning that role have sort of not done it justice so far, in my humble opinion, in as far as the whites are concerned. So we'll have to just wait that one and see. But because it's a World Cup, yeah, remember, some of the transfers are going to be a bit tricky, because if you do not get the business done very early on, then you may have to wait until the end of the World Cup, or when that player's country exits the World Cup. Because I usually these elite teams are the teams signing players who have already been summoned to their respective national teams. Bro, can Jose Mourinho reduce the ego of the players? Yeah, Jose Mourinho is really, really capable of that. If there's any one manager that you can bank on when it comes to reducing player egos, it's Jose Mourinho, because his ego is just as big, and he's the kind of guy that will want to stick it to you. He will show you. First of all, Mourinho has nothing to prove to those players. He's won 2 Champions League titles. He's won league titles. He has won a league title in Spain. He's won 2 in Italy. He's won 3 in England, etc., etc. So he has that pedigree. He has that experience. He has that aura, that command about him that, yeah, he will. And remember, he's the kind of manager or head coach who will be trusted with a given level of authority to do as he pleases. So if you're Kylian Mbappe and he puts you to the bench, for as long as the team is winning, there's nothing you're going to tell him. There's nothing you're going to tell him. So he will show you who is boss. He's really, really capable of that. Jose Mario Felix Mourinho. Speaking of Jose Mario Felix Mourinho, okay. I wanted to get a few quotes for about Jose Mourinho. And this came in a short while ago from Fabrizio Romano. Florentino Perez was speaking. He said, a good coach will make our team work because we have the best players in the world. And then he was asked Mourinho, and he said he's a very good coach. So, and then he went on to talk about people I know I will bring the best in the world to Real Madrid always. And that's why, and he said, Vinicius Jr., I hope he renews the contract. He's one of the very best in the world. So, first of all, they have some really, really priced assets. Aromal, you say Porto, 2004. Yes, he did win the UEFA Champions League with FC Porto in 2004. So he has a pedigree to his side in terms of managing at the highest level. He's been at Real Madrid before, so that in itself is gives him another points credit going for his return to the Santiago Bernabeu. The landscape may have changed, but he knows what it would take to succeed at Real Madrid. So yeah, that Porto side who beat Monaco in the finals of 2004. Carlos Alberto, Deco, and Alechniev were the goal scorers in that one. Anyways, so that's all is happening. So then in Italian football, there's a swap of managers. You remember Atlanta at the start of the season had they had Ivan Juricic at the helm of it. Then quickly they part ways with him and brought in Rafael Palladoni, who has now left the club, and Mauricio Sarri is going to take over. Mauricio Sarri has been at Lazio. At Lazio, Malo Gusto is set to replace him. And then AC Milan sacked Massimiliano Allegri. Now, they pursued Andoni Raiola, that deal collapsed. Now, it looks like they have turned their attention to Antonio Conte, and Massimiliano Allegri, who was sacked from AC Milan, is going to Napoli, because Antonio Conte has left Napoli. So it's like these guys are simply swapping out managers. Meanwhile, Franco Mastantuono will be left out of the Argentina squad. That's according to reports coming through. So, but for Massimiliano Allegri to Napoli is a here we go. So it sort of reminds me of what really, really happens within the realms of Ugandan football. A lot of domestic coaches are recycled from one team to another. Okay. and then Ajax are also pushing for Mitchell to take on or Michel to take on at Ajax. So a lot of deals are happening. A lot of deals are happening, especially when it comes to managerial changes. But the bad news thus far today was with Neymar Santos Jr. Neymar did suffer a new injury and is expected to be out for a period of 2 to 3 weeks, which could see him miss Brazil's opening game of the World Cup against Morocco. So it's very, very unfortunate that Neymar Santos Jr. has suffered that injury. In an ideal world, they would rather he does not suffer the injury. But we'll have to wait and see how things go. Then, okay, quickly, let's see if there's more to this. Really? Okay. This is some exclusive breaking news coming through from Ben Jacobs, as he says, you say James Rodriguez retired? Not to the best of my knowledge. He was still playing. Bro, who can replace Cruz role right now? Tony Cruz, I mean, you see, replacements are there. They just won't be as good as Tony Cruz. That's all I can say. Because Vitinha can do that for you. As much as he's played predominantly as a six, he can do that for you. He can replace Tony Cruz well in that team. He's just not a Tony Cruz, but he can do that for you. The way he applies himself. Vitinha would be one of the candidates. Angelo Stiller at Stuttgart, maybe. So there's that, think of those. Viola says, good morning. Oh, Viola, it's good morning for you. Okay, it's midnight. I understand. Good morning to you, Viola. I hope you're doing well. Okay, so the exclusive is that Ibrahim Konate is expected to leave Liverpool, as there's not been an agreement on his contract. Now, a couple of weeks ago, if not over a month ago, the reports coming through out of Anfield were such that the two parties were close to reaching an agreement for Ibrahim Konate to stay. Now, in an interesting turn of events, looks like there's no agreement and the player could leave. I think it will be a big dent on Liverpool, especially when you look at their lack of depth defensively, but also too many changes in defense may sometimes affect you. One would make the argument that how come Bournemouth were able to go through that? I remember Marco Senesi was not new at that team. So you had that. And then the pressure at Bournemouth is not the same as that at Liverpool. So if Konate leaves, and I expect Joe Gomez to leave eventually, is that you'd have Virgil van Dijk left, and you're expecting to receive a Jeremy Jacquet, who unfortunately suffered a bad, I think, hamstring injury in the course of this season, needing surgery. And then you have a Giovanni Leoni, who is also a youngster, turning 19, if he hasn't already, who suffered an anterior cruciate ligament injury this season. So literally, you'll be sending Liverpool into panic mode. So therefore, they need to get a trusted figure that comes in and slots in straight away to help Virgil van Dijk. And the question will be, who would that figure be? If Ibrahim Konate leaves, and you're having this sort of rebuild. And we know how defenders have become integral to how teams play, especially in the build-up in the build of their game. That's why when you go to the statistics, you'll find that a lot of defenders are making more passes than even midfielders in the game these days. So I think that will be a huge dent for Liverpool. So apparently, Crystal Palace are expecting an answer today from Andoni Iraola in regards to their proposal on his table. I've told you about Crystal Palace's pursuit of Andoni Iraola. I think they want a decision as quickly as possible so that they get to determine whether they move on or stick around for negotiations. Jude Bellingham will be back at his position under Jose Mourinho in his 10. Well, let's wait and see. It's not a given. It's not a given, but different managers have different approaches. But I think he's better off as a 10 as opposed to playing him in a deeper role. You're better off playing Chouameni, Fede Valverde, and maybe Jude Bellingham in that sort of midfield trio. And then you have Vinicius Junior at one side, Kylian Mbappe leading the lines, and then Franco Mastantuano to the left, or Rodrigo Goes if he's back, in that sort of setup. But we'll have to wait and see. BBC Sports Pundits have voted Declan Rice as the Premier League Player of the Year. And somebody said more proof that BBC pundits have fallen off. Why? Because they're much Manchester fan and would rather they name Bruno Fernandes. Jesus Christ. If we can't disabuse ourselves of any biases whatsoever, then it would, serve us better. Okay. Jesus Christ. Anyways, it is what it is. Let's move on from that. But anyways, those are some of the major stories today. I saw a clip of Mikel Arteta and Luis Enrique being reminded of their time together at Barcelona. Remember, they both have a Barcelona history, having come through La Masia. Although at the time when Arteta was at the academy level, Luis Enrique was already in the first team playing with the likes of Pep Guardiola at the time, and things like that. So we wait to see. Guys, I've already done the preview for the Champions League final between PSG and Arsenal. Go over to the video section and look out for that. Watch the video. Let me know what your comments, your views and thoughts are down in the comment section. So just go over there, leave me a comment down in the comment section, and you let me know how things look like. But as far as things go, expect a lot of transfer movement. Man United are interested in Sandro Tonali. They want to seal a deal for Henderson from Atlanta. Now, and the way I look at Henderson is better than Ugarte, but not as good as Casemiro. So that's the sort of profile of player that Manchester United will be signing. He's not very good in the air. He does not score very many goals. He does win the ball quite well. Physically, I do not know how he would cope with the Premier League, but his physicality is not as good as that of Casemiro. So today we're having that discussion, and somebody called him he called him the better version of Ugarte. But yeah, I find him better than Ugarte, but not as good as Casemiro. So he's somewhere there in between. And maybe with good coaching, he gets better. But the mere fact that he's not been called up to the Brazil national team should also inform you just as much. Viola is asking Mbonyuka. It's been 1 hour, so we are close to wrapping it up. Usually, our broadcasts go for 1 hour, 2 hours, depending on the news that there is to digest or what questions I have to answer on the forum. If there's not many questions, usually we'll do 1 hour, especially when we've exhausted the topics that we had come to discuss. The reason as to why I'm not going in depth on the PSG Arsenal game in terms of the analysis of it is because I've already done a full preview. It's on the channel. It's about 20 something minutes. You can go over there and watch it and let me know what your views are. But also, we'll have tomorrow morning to further dig deep into that game as we lead to the weekend, because remember, it's the only big game that is set to be played. In the weekend, we do not have much responsibilities in terms of games to digest, so there's that as well. But in terms of major stories, that's what is making the rounds. In as far as managerial changes that, like we've spoken about in Italy, also at Villarreal. Yes, at Villarreal. Remember, there's going to be a change of guard. There's going to be a change of guard, and they are turning to Inigo Perez at Rayo Vallecano to replace Marcelino Garcia Toral, who is leaving Villarreal. Now, he's had a very, very decent campaign because he guided Villarreal to a third place finish with 72 points. 72 points. That's quite remarkable, by the way, for Villarreal, So it's been really, really brilliant. I do not know what has caused him to leave. I don't know what has caused him to leave, but whatever the case is, they are turning to Inigo Perez as his replacement. Remember, it was Barcelona, Madrid, Villarreal, Atletico de Madrid, Real Betis, and then Celta Vigo qualified for Europa League, as well as Real Sociedad because they won the Copa del Rey, and then Getafe are going to the UEFA Conference League. If Vallecano had won yesterday, they would have been promoted. They would have gone for the UEFA Europa League. Okay, but njagala oyambaleyo omujozi gwa Chelsea. I have no problem putting on a Chelsea kit. Just get me a Chelsea kit. A nice one, and not that one that had a 3 in front. Get me a Chelsea jersey. I'll have no problem putting it on. I have no problem putting on a Chelsea jersey. And the reason for that is I do not think there's much rivalry between Arsenal and Chelsea. The way it would be Arsenal, Tottenham Hotspurs, or by extension on our side of the continent, Arsenal United, Raymond Kangumba says, hi, owner of Newcastle should not stick with Ed Howe. Sack Ed Howe. Oliver Glasner should be appointed. Raymond, we've spoken about this before. For now, it's Ed Howe. Until that changes, yeah, the same way. Now, Raymond, let me give you an example. You find yourself in a similar position that some of the Liverpool fans find themselves in. And in that position, the group of Liverpool fans that say, no, we are done with Arne Slot. The sooner he leaves, the better off we will be. And they are valid within their own reasons to suggest as much or to think that way. But for now, the decision as is that Arne Slot is still there to stay. You have those that are saying, pull the plug on Arne Slot, part ways with him as soon as possible. Let's move on to the next best candidate. And Andon Iraola is one of those who is interested in the Liverpool job. But for now, he's still at the helm of Liverpool, the same way Ed Howe is still there to stay for Newcastle. So whether you like it or not, you have to live with that decision. It happens. It just happens all over the place. A lot of times, we as fans think our teams can do better when it comes to the people in charge of those clubs, whether it's sporting directors, whether it's CEOs, whether it's head coaches or managers who predominantly we are more focused on, whether it's players in certain positions. We often think we can do better than what we have. And that's oftentimes true. But like I keep reminding you, unfortunately, the decisions are not ours to make. At the end of the day, for as long as we pay allegiances to those respective teams, we ought to live with the decisions that have been made by those put in charge to make those very decisions. So we just have to carry on that way. So anyways, Manchester United continue with their pursuits or exploits in the transfer window. Beyond Anderson, of course, they want to land the services of Elliot Anderson. And I saw somebody saying that Manchester United missing out on Elliot Anderson would be the equivalent of 2023 when they missed out on Declan Rice. Remember, for Declan Rice, they were never even in the conversation because it was Manchester City pushing for him, pushing Arsenal. And apparently, I've been led to believe that Manchester City had an even better offer than that of Arsenal when it came to the transfer fee for Declan Rice to West Ham. But Declan Rice told the club that his preferred destination was with Arsenal after having had a successful meeting with Mikel Arteta. And he said right from the onset when he spoke with Mikel Arteta, he was so convinced, he was so sold that Arsenal was his preferred destination. Okay. Is Lozi and Nusa and Jonathan David to sign for Newcastle? We'll have to wait and see how Newcastle look to exploit the transfer window. For now, I think the focus is going to be on a lot of obviously the plans are already being made, if haven't already been made, in regards to who Newcastle should pursue. But the outgoings are going to be also very crucial because, like I've told you before, Anthony Gordon is on his way to Barcelona. We know for an absolute fact that Arsenal, Man United have an appreciation for Sandro Tonali. We do not know where this an exit of Sandro Tonali would push Bruno Guimaraes, I think, to push for an exit as well. So the jury is still out there on Newcastle in regards to how they could look like, particularly in that midfield, going into next season. And then sometimes you also, as a club, need to move on players who you think are not good enough for the stage where you are at, and then bring in those that you feel are better. What's the situation with Nick Pope? Remember, they have, I think, does Aaron Ramsdale get to stay on a permanent basis? We have to wait and see. What if you had to lose Lewis Hall to a Manchester United? You need somebody there. So there's going to be a lot of moving pieces on that Newcastle chessboard that we have to wait and see where it lands. So just give it time. Just give it time. It is simply a matter of time for us to find out where things will land with that. Last Goose says, gonna smoke PSG like a cigar. Let's hope that is the case. Meanwhile, Adam Wharton was asked about his views on missing the World Cup squad, and he said he's just not going to sit back, dwell and cry about it. It is what it is, so he has to pick himself up. And that man of the match performance in the final against Rayo Vallecano is why I was rooting for him ahead of Jordan Henderson. But I explained to you what the rationale was for the choice of Jordan Henderson over the likes of Adam Wharton, who I thought has been brilliant for Crystal Palace, has been really brilliant for Crystal Palace. But it is what it is. So it's one of those other decisions that we have to live with, whether we agree with it or not, especially for those that are fans of the England national team. For now, yeah, it is that. So anyways, guys, allow me to call it a wrap. It's been a pleasure doing this with you tonight for the last 1 hour and 12 minutes, close on at least. Thank you so much, Aromal. Thank you so much, Viola. Thank you so much, Raymond Kangumba. Thank you so much, Ash, Sarayan. It's been a pleasure. Pedri, thank you so much. Lash Goose says, what you predict on May 30th? I went for a 2-1 victory for the Arsenal. That's my prediction. Cedric, it was a pleasure. The Up the Villa 2026, and Neon, and every single one of you that has been part of tonight's podcast. It's been a pleasure. Allow me to wish you a blessed night. Let's catch up again tomorrow. For those of you that watch our live broadcasts long after they've ended, I do not take your love and support for granted. Mitchell Wainscourt, Becky, Viola, Summerbanks, Mildred Chelsea, Nando, Sky, Gladiator, aka Farouk, and every single one of you, that Mwami Isaac, Alex Alinaitre, Bokolo Steven, Maurice Kato, Michael Matovu, Reluctant Gamer, Danny, aka Peter Parker, who is the other? Thank you so much for always choosing to be part of our broadcasts. Reluctant Gamer says, smash the like button. Thank you so much. Reluctant Gamer, you've joined us at the tail end of the broadcast, but nonetheless, it has been a pleasure to have you join us. Tomorrow, we'll be here to do it all over again. And like I said, go and watch that. Yes, Ash. There's Ash, the Tottenham fan from India. Thank you so much as well for always choosing to be part of us whenever it is you can. And from yesterday, thank you so much. Jesus JY815, wherever you are, thank you so much. Breadcrumbs, wherever you are, thank you so much. Leslie from USA, the other was who? Sino Bueno, Prisinkosi, and every single one of you guys that chooses to, support this channel. Thank you so much. Arsenal one. Oh, did you retract the comment, Arumal? Okay. And Basafan, we super chatted together. Yes, Ash. I cannot forget him. He's been part of tonight's chat room. By the way, there are two Pedris, and they are both Barcelona fans. One calls himself Maestro Pedri, and the other is simply Pedri. So all of you guys, thank you so much for the continued love and support. I hope you continue doing the same. Like I've recommended, go to the video section of the channel and watch that preview of PSG versus Arsenal and let me know what your views and thoughts are. For now, it's been a pleasure. Yeah. That's it for me. Have a blessed night. Let's link up again tomorrow morning at 9 a.m. Now, tomorrow morning, I do not know. I cannot guarantee that I'll be here. Why? If power is off, I may not be able to make it. But for as long as we have power, because like I told you, this throughout the entirety of this week, it's going to be a bit fluctuating. That's why you did not see me yesterday morning for the morning broadcast, because it wasn't there. So anyways, we'll look to see how it all goes down. For now, bye-bye. Stay blessed.